Welcome to another episode of the Preparing for Pregnancy After Loss podcast. I am here with Tasha, and you might know Tasha on Instagram. She has Tasha's Tea as her username and shares just a lot of amazing, inspiring content for women, birth warriors in the fertility community. So welcome, Tasha.
Hi, Natalie. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you for having me on.
Of course. Thank you for agreeing to come on and sharing your story. So I'll share Tasha's intro. Tasha is a New Yorker with a splash of Caribbean in her. Her hobbies include breakfast, lunch, and dinner. She's a foodie at heart. She is best served with tea and a side of sarcasm. She enjoys reading, writing, and shopping. She's also an animal lover who loves the beach and a good glass of wine. Oh,
Yes.
and did she mention that she's also a legal assistant? When she's not writing, she's spending time with her hubby and her fur babies, Ralphie and Dee Dee. And her motto is, let's live, laugh, and love always. I love that intro, Tasha.
Thank you. You said it so I was like, oh my gosh, you're talking about me? Who is that person?
Cool. So glad to have you here. And this space is for you to share your story, share your fertility journey, your birth warrior journey. So the first question that we'll dive into is just sharing anything about your journey that you'd like to share.
We've been on our journey now for about as long as we've been married. So about 10 years. And it's had a lot of ups, it's had a lot of downs. But we're still going. We're still going. That's the perfect way to put it. I'm a type A. I'm a planner and a control freak. So I've learned to realize that this is out of my control. I can't control what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, if it's going to happen. I've just learned that I can't control it anymore. And I've always known I wanted to be a mom. I mean, like from the time I was in high school, I literally had like a game plan of what my life was going to be like. I just always knew I wanted to have kids. I wanted to have a boy and a girl. I had names picked out too. I mean, that's how much planned it, and I kind of feel like, now that I'm 38 and I look back, there was so many, I just planned everything. And I kind of felt like I was just checking off the boxes that I was supposed to check off in life. Like I went to high school, check, went to college, check, met a guy, check, got engaged, check, got married, check. So the next thing was have a baby. So I'm like, well, that shouldn't be a problem. My mom had 2 kids. She was fine. Nothing, and we never had really talked about having kids or issues with pregnancies or just difficulties trying at all. So I figured, well, my mom has 2 kids, so shouldn't be hard for me to get pregnant. The thought didn't even cross my mind.
Right.
So a year after we got married, we were like, you know what, let's just try. Whatever happens, happens. So a year after, we started trying and it happens. And I think it took us both by surprise. And that pregnancy happened so fast. I literally found out I was pregnant one week and then miscarried the next week.
Wow.
So it was very quick. And I was very early along. I was only about 5 weeks when I found out I was pregnant. So with that pregnancy, I don't think that I processed it. I don't think I processed it like I should have at that time. I took a couple of days off from work, to just vent, relax, clear my head. And then I kind of just immediately went back to work because I felt like I needed some sort of normalcy.
Right.
So at that time, I just really didn't think that I processed it. And at that point, it felt like, okay, now I really want a baby now, because now that I know the feeling of losing one, I want to get pregnant now,
Right.
So I kind of it really consumed me for a couple of years. It consumed me. It overwhelmed me. And I just wanted to I just wanted to get pregnant so badly, you know? And I think during that time, I was just so frustrated because it wasn't happening. And then I was trying to be positive, but I was like too optimistic, if that's a word, you know? So like 1 month would pass and I'm like, it's fine. I'll get pregnant next month. Not a big deal. Then 6 months would pass. Then a year would pass. Then 2 years would pass, 3 years. And I went 5 whole years without anything happening. And it just kind of started to take its toll on me. And at one point, I just gave up. I really gave up. I didn't even tell my husband that I gave up. I just mentally in my head, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And one day I just kind of just woke up one morning and I just prayed and I was just like, God, I don't know if this is for me. Maybe I'm just not meant to be a mom. I don't know. I just can't do this anymore. So I'm just going to let it go at this point. And I just said, I'm just going to live my life. And if it's in your will, fine. If it's not, then I'm just going to have to live with it. And I just kind of said that prayer to myself. And I was just like, I need to get back to me because I feel like I lost myself in the process. And literally after I prayed that prayer, a week later, I got pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
A week later. So I was like in total shock. And it's such a funny story how I found out I was pregnant because I had I had a weird stomach pain on my left side and it was just a sharp shooting pain. And at first I was like, you know how we are as women, we're like, I can handle this. It's just a little pain. It'll go away, whatever. Wasn't thinking about it, And a couple of days passed and my husband was like, we were getting ready to go out to eat. We were going to Cheesecake Factory and the pain was like, it would go away and come back. So it wasn't like a constant. So I didn't think too much of it. And he's like, one night we're going out to eat and he was like, pain came back. And he was like, do you think you need to go to the emergency room? And I was like, no, let's go out to eat. Went out to eat, had steak, everything, like totally just disregarded the pain. I was like, I can deal with this. I'm a soldier. I could deal with this.
Yeah.
Whatever. So after a couple of days, I was like, babe, let me just go to the doctor. I don't know what it is, but let me just go and see what they say. So I get to the doctor and the first thing he asks is there any chance you could be pregnant? So in my head, I'm like, well, we've been trying for 5 years. Nothing's happened. So I'm like, you could take it, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be negative, whatever, you know? So he took it and he said, we'll call you in a few days. So I came back home and I told my husband, I'm like, don't think about it or anything, but they made me take a test. I'm pretty sure it's going to be negative. So let's not even talk about it until we hear back from the doctor. So a couple days passed and I actually wasn't even thinking about it. I was just like, that test is probably negative. He's just going to tell me something's wrong with my stomach, whatever.
Right.
So I had been going to him for a few years. So the nurses, they knew me really well. So I'll never forget. They called me at I think it was 4:00 in the afternoon. I'm sitting at my desk at work. So then she goes, well, do you want the good news or the bad news first? So I'm like, well, give me the bad news first.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, give me the bad news. I don't want to hear good news and then you hit me with something bad. So give me the good news. Give me the bad news first, girl. So she's like, well, you can't drink for 9 months. I didn't even understand. That's how she told me. No lie. That's how she told me. So I'm like, what do you mean I can't drink for 9 months? I still wasn't processing what she said. So she started laughing. So she's like, girl, you pregnant? And I was like, no, I'm not. I was like, are you? I think I asked her at least 5 times on the phone. I was like, are you sure the test is positive? She's like, girl, you were pregnant.
Wow.
I'm like, are you sure though? She's like, Tosh, you're pregnant. And I'm like, okay, I need some time to process. So I'm still at work while she's on the phone telling me this. So I'm like, okay. So it's almost the end of the day because I leave work at 5 o'clock. So I hang up. I can't concentrate at this point. I'm ready to go home.
Right.
I'm like, I can't work. I can't answer client calls. I'm pregnant. I don't have time for this. I was ready to leave at 4:30. So I was like, how am I going to tell my husband I'm pregnant when I can't even process this? Husband, if you tell him I have to tell you something, he gets so excited. He wants to know now.
Right.
So I don't even know why I told him before I got home. So I said, oh, are you home? No, I think I was driving. And I'm like, where are you? He's like, oh, I'm home. I'm just tidying up. And I was like, oh, okay. I got to tell you something when I come home, just casually. So he's like, what? I'm like, nothing, babe. When I get home, I'll tell you. He tortured me the whole way home.
Oh my
I was like,
gosh.
babe, I said, I'm going to tell you when I get home. Just chill. Do what you're doing, and I'll see you when I get home. So he's like, all right, fine. So, of course, I get home. I think he was mopping. So I walked through the door, and he's like, well, what you had to tell me? And I'm like, dang, you're not going to even give me a chance to breathe. So I think I just blurted it out. I was like, so I'm pregnant. I just said it like that. And he's like, and I'm like, yeah. So he was mopping, and he dropped the mop, and then he's just sat on the couch for a second. And like, I think he was in disbelief. And he started crying. I'm like, oh, here we go. And then I'm like, I'm trying not to cry. So now we're both crying. And then, we took a few days and processed. And I was just like, wow, I'm actually pregnant. Okay. And I was very like, I don't even remember how I told my parents. I was just so like shocked. And because of what happened the first pregnancy, I was very like, didn't want to tell anyone. Didn't want to. So we told my parents, we told my brother-in-law, his parents. So at that time, they were the only ones. So we thought that knew.
Gosh.
That knew, right? It was so funny. So like, we'd be eating dinner or something. And then like I think one time we were like having dinner, my husband said something very casual about one of his friends and the baby. And I'm like, you told him? And he's like, sorry. And I'm like, I told you not to tell anybody. He's like, I know, that's it. I'm not going to tell anybody else. And I'm like, okay, you better not. So, at first I was very, I had to tell my boss, of course. So, but I really didn't tell anybody at my job because I was very protective of the pregnancy. I just wanted to do everything the right way. And I just wanted to be extra cautious. So I wore like baggy clothes, like big shirts, like no one knew. Like you had to be like really looking at me to tell that I was pregnant. And so no one knew at work besides my boss. So I kind of kept it hidden for a while. And then I'll never forget when we found out that we were having twins, because my husband, he's an identical twin. So our first sonogram appointment, I was nervous because I'm like, ultrasound rooms are like a big trigger for me. Yeah. Very big trigger. And it brings back a lot of painful memories. So every time I'm in an ultrasound room, I'm like, I got to breathe through it and just try to think of positive things. So I think my husband was holding my hand, and this is the first sonogram I had ever gotten since I was pregnant. So the doctor was like, okay, I hear a heartbeat. So I kind of relaxed a little bit. Then he's like, I hear another heartbeat. No, he goes, I hear another one. That's exactly how he said it. So I was like, another what? And he goes, another heartbeat. So I know my reaction was probably way out there, but I just started laughing because I was like, this cannot be for real. So I'm like, you hear two heartbeats? So I don't even know what my husband was doing because I was just focused on the fact that he said two. Yeah. So at this point, my husband's like overly excited. I'm just in a trance, in a daze, just trying to figure out in my head now. I'm like, well, I'm going to have to buy two of everything. In my head, I'm already thinking of how much stuff I'm going to need. Who's going to help me with two babies? Like I'm already like planning their whole like existence. So my husband's like overly excited. He's like, babe, we have to tell people. And I'm like, no, we don't. So we get in the car, and then I don't know how my mom got involved. I don't know how he calls. I don't know. He calls my mom or something. So the two of them are like conspiring, trying to convince me that we need to like make a grand announcement. And I'm like, Mom, we do not need to tell people. She's like, this is a blessing. We need to tell everybody. And I'm like, here we go. So by the time we left the doctor's appointment to the time we got home, the entire family knew I was pregnant. Oh my God. Like with twins. Yeah. Like, I was just like, you guys, I mean, between the two of them, it was just like, and then I was getting phone calls, congratulations, da, da, da. And I'm like, thank you. And I'm trying to figure out how did the news travel that fast? Like it took us 30 minutes to get home. And within 30 minutes, like the entire family knew. And I'm like, Caribbean people, they can't hold water like at all, at all. I'm like, and then my mom and my husband are like tag teaming me. Like she's on the phone telling me how we need to tell everybody. He's in the car calling people. And then he's like, yeah, mom, we need to tell people. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So after that point, it was like, I had to accept the fact that everybody knew at this point. So because I was still being protective, like I just didn't want to say anything to anybody. And like at that point, like everybody knew. So I'm like, okay, Tosh, just accept it and just process it. Everyone knows, you're going to get constant phone calls now. Everybody's going to call to check up on you. And sometimes I don't think people realize, like, when they call and check up on you constantly, it's kind of like overbearing. You don't want to think about it too much either, because you don't want to have like anxiety and stressed out. So, I was like, just relax and try to process it, and I was starting to get to a point where I was, a little comfortable. I was allowing myself to relax a little bit. And I always had this thing, like, I never wanted to take pictures of myself when I was pregnant. I was just afraid that I was going to lose my babies, and then having to see the pictures were going to be like a reminder, And, every now and then I would take a picture of my belly or just take a picture of myself, but pregnant. And like, now that I look back, I'm at least thankful that I have, even if it's just a few pictures, just 1 or 2 or 3, at least for me to remember that time. Because I was just always so like, I don't want to take pictures. I just didn't. It was kind of like a mental thing for me, So I finally decided, okay, let me just relax. I'm pregnant. Everybody knows it's okay. And I think at the point where I was starting to get a little comfortable and relaxed, that's when the miscarriage happened. So I'll never forget. It was a Sunday, and I woke up and I was like spotting, not a lot, but just very light. And I called one of my girlfriends because she has a lot of kids, so she had a lot of experience. So I'm like, listen, this is happening. I don't know if this is normal or not, but do you think I should go? She's like, don't panic. She said, but just go just to make sure. So we went to the hospital. And then my mom was like, do you want me to drive down? Because she lives like 3 hours away. So she was like, do you want me to come down? And I'm like, no, I think everything's fine. I feel fine. Let me just go get checked out, and then I'll call you back. So, the nurse came in and they started doing the sonogram. At this point, I was just thinking that everything's fine. Maybe it's just something that happens when you're pregnant. Because I've heard of people like having light spotting, and it's just something that happens. Everybody's different. So the nurse said, I don't hear a heartbeat. So I remember asking her, well, do you not hear it for one of them or both? Because I know it was twins. So she said, no, for both. So at this time, I think I kind of just checked out. Said, okay, just like that. I just said, okay. And I didn't cry at that point just yet. I kind of waited for her to leave. And when she left the room, I completely lost it. I was a mess. I completely lost it. And I don't even know. I think my husband took care of the phone calls. I remember calling my mom, and she actually, I was talking to her just last week about it, and I couldn't remember. And she said, you called me to tell me that she said, I said, Mom, there's no heartbeat. And I just like started crying. I don't remember what happened after that. And she said, I didn't even remember because, so much time had passed. She said, I kept calling her and I was like, Mom, where are you? Are you coming? Where are you? Are you coming? So I've never seen my mom drive that fast because she lives in Orlando and I live in Fort Lauderdale. There's like a 3-hour driving distance. So she said she jumped in her car. She came. At this point, I was a mess. They gave me the miscarriage pill because they wanted it to, everything to come out. And nurse had said, at this point, I was in some pain, like I was having the cramping and stuff. So I was like feeling it. So she said, I'm going to give you the pill. She goes, but if nothing happens overnight when you go home, then you're going to have a DNC.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go home and just kind of wait and see if anything happened.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, my mom had gotten here. We were back home, and I couldn't really sleep that night, obviously, because I'm just waiting for it to happen. So that in itself was like keeping me up all night.
Mm-hmm.
And the next morning, nothing happened. So I kind of already knew what I was going to have to prepare for.
Mm-hmm.
We had the DNC. I think I took a couple days off from work, like you normally do. And I went back to work. I still hadn't processed it. My emotions were just very all over the place.
Right.
I was crying one minute. I was sad one minute. I was angry. And then when I got back to work, of course, there were people that I guess I started to show a little bit. So people were kind of already suspecting that I was pregnant, but they didn't know. Yeah. So when I got back to work, it was the uncomfortable stares or them looking at my stomach because I had been out of work for like a week. So they were trying to figure out what happened.
Right.
So it was a combination of having to deal with that and then having to deal with it mentally, emotionally, personally by myself. I was an emotional roller coaster at that point.
Of course.
Emotional roller coaster. I think, after that, I felt depressed. Felt depressed. I felt kind of isolated. I kind of felt like alone, like nobody understood what I was going through.
Yeah.
And no matter what people said, and they were trying to say, it wasn't comforting me at that time. Just in so much pain because I felt like I was angry and I was kind of asking God, like, why did you let this happen to me? Like, why did you let me get comfortable? I let go a little bit, trying to relax and be in good spirits about the pregnancy. Then you just took away my babies from me, So for a long time, I was just very angry with God. And I felt like no one understood me. I just felt like no one understood me. And I kind of felt like life was just kind of going on around me. And I was just like there. Like I was functioning day to day, going to work, coming home, cooking, cleaning. But I was just kind of like in a robot kind of sense, just trying to have some sort of normalcy, but I really wasn't functioning too well.
Yeah.
And one day I think I had a meltdown and a friend happened to call me and ask, she was just calling me. And she was like, "Are you okay?" And I tried to play it off, but she could tell something was wrong with me. It was like, "I think you need to talk to somebody." And at that point, I didn't receive it. At that point, I was just like, I don't know what she's talking about. I can, I don't need to talk to anybody about my feelings. I could work through. And it had, I had to finally tell myself, okay, something is wrong. Like this can't be normal. And like everything was a trigger for me, like I couldn't even look at a person that was pregnant. Like if somebody was pregnant, I would just turn my head because I just didn't even want to look at their stomach. Or it was so odd that right after I miscarried, I would just constantly see twins everywhere. Everywhere. It was just so like ironic. Like I went grocery shopping. I saw a mom just grocery shopping with twin boys. And I always felt like they were boys. So when I saw that, it was just like every little thing was a trigger. And like, no matter what people said to me, you know how sometimes people try to be comforting, but then it totally comes off wrong. And then you feel worse than you did, So I was dealing with that and then having to deal with, like that, like people trying to be comforting, saying the wrong things to me, making me feel worse. And then now they brought me down even more.
Right.
So I dealt with that for a lot of years. I finally decided to go to therapy. And it's funny how God works, because my therapist, I know she was God sent, because literally I didn't ask anybody for any recommendations, because it was something that was new to me. And I kind of, to be honest, I felt uncomfortable. I felt uncomfortable like asking people, like, do you go to therapy? Who do you go to? Who would you recommend? Because, it's not really talked about a lot.
Yeah.
So I literally went to Google and I just typed in African American therapist. A list came up, people's names came up. So I literally just started writing down people's names and I would just call them. I would just call them, and like some of them had like a 15-minute consultation, and you can explain to them like, why you want to go to a therapist, kind of give them your story of why you're coming.
Yeah.
And like, to me, once I had that conversation with them, if I didn't connect in that conversation, then I kind of crossed them off the list and just kept going.
Yeah.
And with her, I talked to her and I felt comfortable. So I was like, you know what, let me give it a try and just see. And I went for my first visit and I've been going ever since.
Nice.
It's been about maybe 2-3 years now since I've been going. And it's helped me a lot, because it's helped me to release a lot that I was holding in, because I realized that I was suppressing so much.
Yeah.
And then it's somebody that's talking to me that doesn't know me personally. So it's their advice and their words coming from a non-judgmental place.
Yeah.
Able to talk to them freely and not hold back. They're not family, they're not friends, they're not girlfriends. So I can just say what I want without feeling like I'm offending anybody.
Right.
So that was really, really good for me. And I kind of felt like it felt like for a long time like a chip on my shoulder, because I feel like every time I would go somewhere or we go to functions, it was like everybody has their kids, or it's Easter, everybody's taking their kids to an Easter egg hunt, and we're getting together for Easter, and everybody's with their kids, and we're just no kids,
Yeah.
So going to therapy helped me a lot too, because it helped me to kind of recognize what my triggers were, and not even just like with the miscarriages, but just me as a person. Like, it helped me figure out other things that I was just suppressing and holding in too. Also helped me to like kind of educate my family and my friends on like what to say, what not to say. And I got very comfortable with saying, okay, that I learned that in therapy. That's a trigger. Try not to say that to me, like, or maybe say it this way, because when you say it this way, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. Like, just, and it really helped me, because it was like, I understand that people were trying to help me and they were trying to make me feel better, especially family.
Yeah.
And they know you so well. So they know how to say stuff that's going to immediately upset you, but they don't realize that they're doing it. So I got very comfortable with just trying to educate them and just help them. And I even had like girlfriends at work that knew what happened. And like, we had another coworker, she had a difficult journey too, and she miscarried. And one of my good friends was like, well, we want to get her like a gift basket. What do you think? We want to get her something. Like, you don't really want gifts after you just lost your baby. Like, I was educating her on what to do to help her, make her feel better. Like, should we say anything to her when she comes back to work? And I'm like, no, don't say anything. Let her come to you. If she comes to you, then just be a listening ear, just be an opening ear to her, but don't try to force it upon her, because that was kind of like me. Like, people were trying to get me to open up, but I wasn't ready yet.
Right.
I had to open up when I was ready.
Right.
So, and when I felt like people were like trying to force me to open up, I kind of pulled back, because that's just my demeanor. If you force me, I'm going to just do the opposite, So I had to work through a lot of that. And, even now, people that don't know me, don't know my husband, and they may meet us for the first time, they're like, wow, you guys have been together 20 years and you've been married 10 years and you don't have any kids. Like people don't understand when they say things like that, how triggering it could be, because then it makes you think like, yeah, that is true. But I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm like, yeah. And I'll say, we've had a difficult journey. And I'll kind of say that. And then they tend to, oh, okay. They kind of know difficult journey means that's me. Obviously hard,
Right.
So I've just learned to not take what people say to heart so much, because I part of my healing was that I had to learn that sometimes people don't realize what they say can hurt you.
Yeah.
So I had to learn to it's just people. They're going to say things. They don't intentionally mean it. And I've had to learn to just brush it off, because I was a grudge holder. And not even just with dealing with my loss, but just in general, as a person, I had a really hard time letting go.
Yeah.
When people would do things that hurt me. So when people would say things that offended me, I would just always hold it against them. So I kind of learned to just let it go.
Yeah.
It's just, people just don't realize it, and it's okay. As long as you know that you're trying to work and heal, then it's okay. And I kind of just got to a point where I felt like, and then the more I started talking about my story, it felt like a release, like I would just talk to somebody and then they would start telling me about their journey, not knowing that we both went through the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's surprising when you realize that infertility, it's not just you. There's like a whole community of women that go through it, but because we're so like embarrassed or ashamed to talk about it, that we have no idea.
Yeah.
So even I think my neighbor actually, she had a very difficult journey. And I remember the first time she told me she miscarried, she was like so heartbroken. Now she's about to give birth. A couple days, So now that I see her now, it's almost like we connected through our pain, and I would just call and just check up on her. Are you okay? How you feeling? Because I didn't want to be too overbearing, because I'm like, Tosh, remember when everybody was doing it to you, you were like, okay, enough. So I got to follow the same thing with her too,
Yeah.
So I feel like me telling my story now it's therapeutic for me too. It's therapy. It's a release, because I feel like for 5 years after the miscarriage, I just held on so tight to everything, and I wouldn't let anyone in. And for a long time, I don't think that I was able to even talk to my husband about it. As the years went by and we finally were able to I was able to be more vocal about it. I felt like I was resentful, because men are different than women, and they process their emotions differently. For him, I just saw him going along his day like nothing. And to me, I took it as, you don't miss them, like you don't care about what happens, not realizing that he was healing, but he was trying to be strong for me and not showing like not weakness, but he was just trying to be strong for me. I took it the opposite way. So it took a long time for me to understand that that's what he was doing too. So it's been a journey, but I feel like at the end of the day, I feel like I know I'm meant to be a mother. I don't know in what form or fashion it's going to happen in, but I know that I'm meant to be a mother. And I know one day it's going to happen. So I'm still hopeful. And I know it's going to happen. I don't know when. And it's so funny because like I've been listening to like IG lives, a lot of lives people do with talking about fertility and listening to like different women's stories. And I keep hearing this lately, and I don't know why, but it keeps resonating with me. One lady said when she was on an IG live, she said, do you want to be pregnant or do you want to be a mother? And I heard it like 2 different times on 2 different IGs. And I'm like, why is this? It's like resonating with me, because I think a part of me, I want to know what it feels like to be pregnant. I want to feel the baby move. I want to feel and experience all of that. So to hear her say that, it's like, and then I did an IG live with someone else too, Dr. Camille Hammond. And she said it on her IG live too. And that was the first time I think I had heard it. And she said, if you focus so much on being pregnant, you're never going to feel fulfilled. When she said it clicked in my head, and I was like, she's absolutely right. Because I'm always like, I still want to experience what it feels like. But if I focus on that so much, I'm going to miss the blessing that's going to come, So I feel like every day I'm healing. I don't ever say like I'm completely healed from this, because I'm not, because there's some days where I have to go back to the doctor. I have to go back into an ultrasound room. I get triggered again. I have a meltdown, so I feel like every day I'm growing and every day I'm evolving. And when it's time, it'll happen, but until then I can't just focus on not having a baby, because I'm always going to be sad and I'm always going to be depressed. And I don't want to feel that way, because I wouldn't want anybody to feel that way. Sad, lonely feeling to feel, So I just don't want any woman or anybody going through fertility just to ever feel down like that.
Yeah. Wow, what a journey that's been, Tasha.
And it has been. It definitely has been.
Yeah. And as I'm looking at you and hearing your voice, you're exuding just so much strength and resilience. It's really just beautiful to see.
And it's funny because like I posted something the other day with my journey, and somebody said, your strength strengthens me. And I'm like, my strength? Like I don't see it, so when people see it, it makes me feel good. So thank you.
Yeah. So there's so many things I want to ask you about.
Shoot,
just
go ahead.
So many.
Ask me anything. I'm fine.
So I want to start with your own mother, because the thought of her just like dashing down the highway trying to get to you, like that made me so emotional. Like to think of like you're her baby, and she's like, oh my gosh, my baby's hurting right now and I just want to get to her. Like that just really touched me.
And I didn't even remember. She reminded me because we were talking about it just 2 weeks ago, actually. And because I was like, I said, Mom, I don't even remember how you found out. And she was like, you called me. I didn't even remember. She said, you called me. And then she goes, you kept calling me. And you were like, where are you, Mom? Where are you? And she herself said, she was like, it was only God that I made it there in one piece. She said she kept calling different people to like keep her on the phone while she was driving, because it was a 3-hour drive. And she said she was a mess. And I didn't know. So I literally just found this out a couple of weeks ago because we were talking about it, And I didn't even know. And then now that I think about it, I'm like, I never thought how my mom felt, because I was so consumed with grief. I couldn't think about anything else.
Of course. Right. Oh my gosh. Just like sending love to all of the mothers who are there for us, like us, their babies who are there for us, who like want to rush to our sides and just hold us. Just like sending love.
I'm 38 and I still have to call my mom. I'm like, Mom, I need you, like,
of course.
I'm about to be 40 next year. And I'm like, I still need my mom,
Oh, yeah.
And there's certain things you just want your mom for.
Of course. I definitely have days when I call my mom crying.
Yes. And I'm just like, Mom, I need you. Like, I don't even remember if I had mentioned it to you at the time, but I had my fibroid surgery back in November. I had complications from it, and my mom was here for the entire thing. I mean, I was crying like a baby. Like she had to, she had to go back to her life, and she had to go back to work because she took off some time to help me recuperate.
Yeah.
And when she left, I cried like a baby. I mean, like my mom, she's tough. She's strong. So she's like, Tosh, don't start with the crying. Can't just stop. Let me just go. And I'm, oh, mommy. She's like, relax. She's like, don't start. Cause she's not a crier. So when she cries, she's like, when she cries, she's like, when she calls me Natasha, she's like, stop.
Yeah.
Don't like, Tasha, stop it. I'm like, all right, mom.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So she's been a soldier through this whole process with us. Yeah. She's been there through the highs, through the lows, everything.
Yeah.
She's seen it all.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. So what has support from the rest of the family been like? You mentioned like people call, people sometimes say the wrong thing. What has really been nurturing for you? What has worked well in terms of their support?
I think just being a listening ear. Sometimes you don't even have to say anything. Just letting me just let it out. Just sometimes, even just talking to my mom, she'd be like, I know. Yeah. Just giving me that space to just sometimes I just maybe just need to sit on the phone and just cry. Two of my really good friends, they both got pregnant around the same time. So that was very difficult for me to feel like I'm still going through my journey. And here it is, my two very good friends who I would normally confide in, now both pregnant. So that was difficult for me. And I'll never forget, one of my friends, she sent me a sonogram picture. And I didn't know how to feel. So I felt bad about not knowing how to feel, and that I just didn't know how to react. And she called me and she said, sis, I didn't know if I should even send the picture to you. And I didn't know how you were going to react. But I sent it, I don't know. But just the fact that she called me and said that, that made me feel good. And I was like, oh, okay, sis, because I didn't know what to do when you sent me the picture. I don't know how to feel. And I was just honest. I'm like, I don't know how to feel. Yeah. No, I'm happy for you. But at the same time, I'm still dealing with a lot. And I said it, but she understood where I was coming from. Yeah. Sometimes it's difficult with friends that, they're all excited. And it's not that you're not happy for them, because I am happy, because she went through a similar journey too. She had a very tough journey. So for her, this was like a miracle baby. Yeah. So I know she's happy about it. And at the same time, I feel bad because I'm happy for her, but sad for me at the same time. Right. So it's kind of difficult to balance those emotions. And if she's calling and telling me, things, and she was very cognizant of it. Like she wouldn't call me and be like, oh, we just came from the doctor, and she wasn't like that. She was very, she catered to my feelings. And even when she told me she was pregnant, she was honest. She was like, Tosh, I didn't know if I should tell you. Because she was at that point, she was like 3 months already. So she was afraid to tell me because she didn't know how I was going to react. Yeah. And I was happy for her, but you still feel like, when is it going to ever happen for me? Right. So, but I think just being a listening ear is like the best support you could give. Just be a listening ear. I think that's worked for me, and just listening. Just sometimes you just don't want the advice.
Exactly. I was just about to add that. Like, you don't have to solve the thing. Just listen.
just listen. Don't tell me you should try this, but you should try. I don't want to hear that. Just listen to me. That's exactly all. Like, sometimes the unsolicited advice, you're like, thank you, but no thank you. Just family has a way of doing that. Like they'll just
Yeah.
start giving you advice, and I'm like, but I didn't ask you.
Yeah.
I just want you to just hear me out and just listen. That's all I want.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that's coming to mind is the reason why friendships are sometimes lost in this process
Oh yeah.
is friends don't know how to support you, or they don't know how to solve the problem, right? They don't know how to take your pain away when that isn't their role. Their role is just to create space for you, to be
Mm-hmm.
able to like give you space to just share what's happening
Mm-hmm.
without feeling the need to make it better. And because they can't make it better,
Yeah.
they just sort of like disappear in the background, right?
Yeah. I've that's very true because I've dealt with that too.
Yeah.
So I know. And it's like they try to say the right things and then they say all the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, okay, right now I'm not in that space where this relationship is not it's not comforting me right now. It's doing
Mm-hmm.
it. So that's
Mm-hmm.
tough too.
Yeah.
It's tough on both sides because especially if the friend has kids
Mm-hmm.
already and they've
Mm-hmm.
never and especially if they've never experienced miscarriage or know what it
Mm-hmm.
feels like.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as if they're talking to you from experience either.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, well, how can you tell me this when you've never experienced this?
Mm-hmm.
Don't really know how I'm feeling, you know?
Yeah. 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 So true. All right. So you mentioned that therapy has been one of the things that were really or have been really
Mm-hmm.
instrumental in your healing. Tell
Mm-hmm.
me about other practices that have been helpful in your healing.
To be honest, I started going to boot camp. Now, I'm lazy. I'm just front. I do not like anything. We're exercising. Don't put me in no class, bicycling. I don't know. I don't like any of that. Don't do that. I don't like that. So I'm lazy. I just don't like exercising. All of that is I'm just like, I ain't got time for that. So I actually started going to boot camp like not immediately after, but like a couple months after. One of my
Mm.
girlfriends was like, let's just go, whatever. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Because I would not go to the gym. For me to say I'm going to the gym, that's not happening.
Yeah.
Not me. So I started going to boot camp, and surprisingly, it was like an outlet for me.
Mm-hmm.
And some days, like I would feel like so tired when I got off work, but then
Mm-hmm.
when I got there, it was like this burst of energy.
Mm-hmm.
I would be the last person coming in, like after, like he'd make us run laps. I'm the last one coming in, but he was such a motivator, and then he
Mm.
would like hype us up, and he was funny. He kept the class going, so it was just fun because I had something to look forward to.
Yeah.
I was actually like feeling good about myself, because you're self-conscious about your body after a miscarriage too, because of course I
Mm-hmm.
had the belly, so I had to wait for my stomach to go down a little bit.
Yeah.
And that kind of, played a toll on me too. So I was,
Mm-hmm.
ugh, I got to do something because you kind of start to feel like frumpy. You just don't feel sexy. You don't feel like,
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't feel like Tasha. And I'm like, I got to find something to do. So
Yeah.
I did that for a few months. I was good. I was being consistent. But the minute I stopped, I stopped. That's the one thing about working out. Like I will be good. Natalie, I was good for like 3 whole months. Even my husband was like,
That's impressive.
what? I was impressed with myself. My husband was like, because he knows how I am. Like, I'll go for boot camp for one day. They ain't gonna see me no more after that. I'm so serious. They are not gonna see me after that. So, and it was so funny because I was going consistently. So my husband is always like, he thinks I'm always complaining. Like, it wasn't that. And I'm like, okay, you want to go with me? So he went one day with my trainer. He almost died. Okay. He was like, babe, I see what you're talking about.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
Natalie, he about died that day. He was like, oh God. I said, now you see why I come home the way I come home. He was like, I'm never gonna make fun of you again. Good. Now you see what it's like. So I did that for a couple months and it really, really helped. Like it made me feel like good about myself. I actually
Mm-hmm.
I've been feeling like that a lot lately. Like I want to start back doing something,
Mm-hmm.
exercising or just doing something to kind of just elevate myself, feel better about
Yeah.
myself, just something good, you know? So that was one of the things I did too. And I started journaling. I really like writing, but I have like spurts. So like I'll always want to write, and then like, then I'm like, I don't feel like writing. But but journaling was good for me too, because it was kind of it was kind of like a release that she taught me how to do in therapy. And one thing I did, which I think it works for me too at the time, was I would like journal, but I wouldn't write it. I would like record myself. So I would like record myself and just say how I'm feeling. And then like every now and then I'd like go back to my phone and like listen to where I was to where I am now and be like, wow, I feel like a totally different person. You know? So sometimes it would be good to just kind of see that, or even like in my journal, I would just go back. And I'll never forget, like one time I think I finished an entire journal and I went back to like the first entry. And it was the first entry was the first time I had went to therapy. Like I wrote about my first therapy session. Like, wow, like the feelings and the emotions that I had is like totally different than how I feel now, you know? So that was another good like outlet for me too.
Amazing. Amazing. So Tasha's tea, tell me about that.
So it's funny because I have a girlfriend that was like, Tasha, you have a story to tell. And I'm like, you think so? And she'll be like, yes, you have a story to tell. She was like, you know how many women want to hear a story? And I'm like, really? You think so? And she was like, Tasha, yes, I really think so. So I launched it last year, honor of Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. And I thought that was like the perfect day, month to do it because it would honor my story, you know? And Natalie, I launched like the intro video. I don't know if you ever saw it, like the one that I did on the beach. And it was like, I couldn't keep up with the amount of responses I was getting that day. Like people were like, finally, you're sharing your story. I'm so proud of you, Tosh. People need to hear about it. They were like, send me the video so I can share it on my page. And I was just so overwhelmed. And the reason why I started it is because I just never wanted anyone to feel how I felt when I lost my babies. I felt alone. I felt isolated. I felt depressed. And I just know that no one wants to feel like that, you know? So my vision was just to like never let women feel like they're not alone and just let them know that there is support for you. You know, I just never wanted anybody to feel alone.
Wow, I love that. And, you know, when you mentioned earlier that after the experience you felt isolated, I kept thinking that so many women or lost moms or birth warriors, they're all alone at home feeling isolated. Right. So imagine, you know, if you're thinking of it like a map, there are all these dots on the map across the world where we're all alone and feeling isolated. When someone starts to share their story, you realize, oh, you feel that way too. I feel that way. Right.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah. So how has that impacted your healing, having Tasha's tea?
That's a good question. It's helped me a lot because I feel like I'm a part of this community of like sisters now. Like, you know, it's like a sisterhood, it's a community. And if I post something, you know, it's always thanks for sharing this, sis, or, you know, I understand how you feel. Like, I feel like I have a sisterhood with women that I've never met, you know, and it's so weird because we only communicate through Instagram, but like, you know, just even finding you, you know, like I call people my sisters because that's, to me, that's like a term of endearment, you know? So it's like all these women that I didn't know existed are like giving me support and they don't even know me. They just know my story and just want to be there for me, you know? So it's helped me in my healing and it's made me feel like, you know, maybe I can share a little bit more of my story or share this part because, you know, there's still things that you still want to keep private, and dear to your heart, you know? And at the same time, I also want women to know, like, she's going through this. She has not had her baby yet. She's working towards it. So don't feel like there's no hope, because I'm still on the journey with you too. And I don't know what the outcome is either, but I'm still here and still trying, you know? And I've heard, just, you know, from people in the fertility community, some of their stories. And I'm just like, oh my God, like I commend them, because if I don't know if I could have dealt with some of the things that they dealt with. You know? And you always feel like what you're going through is so, you feel like it is hard for you, because in your eyes, you feel like this is the hardest thing you've ever had to go through. And then when I look at other women and they're sharing their stories, and I'm just like, wow. And they're still here. They're still hoping. And some of them, they did have their miracle babies. So, you know, it gives me hope when I see other people's journeys. It gives me hope that I know one day it's going to happen for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I continue to just be so inspired and moved by the strength that people have.
Yeah.
And I think because they lived through it and they know, you know, the depths of the pain that they felt inside. They recognize that there was also so much strength that it took for them to actually still be standing.
Yeah.
Right. To decide, I'm going to keep living. Like, that was so painful, but I'm still here and I'm still going. Yeah. Okay.
That's so true. That's so true.
It is. It is. Like, we don't recognize our strength.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes, like, you're put in these situations that you don't have any control over. And the only choice you have is, like, you have to be strong. What other choice do you have? Like, I still have to function in this world. I still, at some point, I have to go back to work. I got to face the world. I have to still continue. I have to still continue to live. So I don't want to. Sometimes I feel like I'm being sorry. Like, I feel sorry for myself. And then I'm like, Tasha, you got to break out of it. Like, you can't be so down and out. You can't live depressed. But then again, that's easier said than done when you're dealing with grief and loss, trying to understand why it happened. Yeah. And then why did it happen the way it happened? You know, so it's easy to be like, all right, shake it off. But it's not that easy. I mean, because it's been like 5-6 years since my miscarriages. And I'm just now getting to a point where I feel comfortable talking about it. And really, I should say 10 years, because we've been on this journey for 10 years. So, you know, it's taken me 10 years to get to this point. So I can only imagine how many other women, maybe they just had a miscarriage. So the healing for them is going to look completely different. When I tell people we've been on the journey for 10 years, they're like amazed. Where I've heard some women in the community that have been on the journey for like 20 years. They're still going. So it's like, if they can do it, then I can do it.
Yes. And you're doing it. You're here.
Thank you. Thank you. It took a long time. So
yeah. So the next question that I have is, obviously the loss was difficult and painful, but if you were to look at it and sort of like mine the gifts from the experience, almost like digging into a gold mine where there's like rocks and rubble and all sorts of things. If you were to find the gold out of that, what would you say some of those things are?
I think strength, because I didn't know I had that all in me. Yeah. So I think I gained a lot of strength. I learned to let go of a lot of things. I'm still a work in progress, because there's times where people say something to me and I'm like, okay, now y'all don't want to see this other Tasha.
Don't let me take my pearls off.
Okay. I'm like, did you really just say that? And, and then I have to be like, all right, God, okay, I probably shouldn't have said it that way. Okay. So I think, holding myself accountable, because I felt like, there were times where people did say things that rubbed me the wrong way. And there could have been times where they really didn't mean it that way. And then I was just constantly taking things the wrong way. So I think it's definitely taught me strength, being more accountable of just how I react and learning to check myself, because I'm not perfect. I'm human. I make mistakes. So they made a mistake. They didn't mean it. So I have to learn how to hold myself accountable. That's not easy. Okay. Some days I feel like, okay, I let it out. Whew, that felt so good. And then I'll think back and then I'm like, all right, Tasha, maybe you didn't have to say it like that. And like my mom, it's so funny because I used to be very passive aggressive. So if somebody would say something that would offend me, I would never tell them, but I would pull back. And now I'm getting to the point where I'm able to express it and say it. So it's funny. I think I told my mom something and my mom's like, well, what did you say? And I'm like, well, I just told her no. So my mom's like, Tosh, maybe not say it. You shouldn't have said it like that. So it's funny because my mom and I are complete opposites. She's very vocal. So she'll tell you how she feels. Sometimes when you don't ask, she just tells you how she feels. So I found it hilarious. She's like, isn't this hilarious? I'm telling you, you need to watch your tone. Isn't this funny?
Yeah.
So it's taught me to just hold myself accountable, but also I feel like I've learned to express myself better because I'm I'm a more introverted type. Like even when sometimes if I'm going out with my girlfriends, we could do one weekend, but we can't do 2 weekends in a row, sis. Like, I need a weekend to stay home, recharge, rejuvenate, and call me in a month. I'll be ready to go back out again, Like, I don't need to go out like you don't need to go out for brunch every week. I love y'all, but I need to recharge. I like to just sit home and watch TV. So so I'm learning because my husband is very extroverted. He likes to, like on the weekends, go out, let's have a bite to eat. So I'm fine with that. But I'm like, I can't go out with my husband this weekend and then go out with y'all next weekend, sis. I need time for myself. I need to recharge. Like, all right, that's enough socializing for like a month. Call me in a month. Once I'm recharged, I've had time to sit at home and do nothing and I'm good, So it's taught me to be a little bit more extroverted to a certain extent, So I think those are the things it's helped me to gain. It's given me a lot of strength that I didn't know I had. Hold myself accountable, and just learn to let go. I think is the biggest one for me. Learn to let go and understand that it's nothing that I did wrong, because at times I would feel like maybe God just thought I was a bad person and maybe I just didn't deserve to have the babies. Those are things that I thought, and I had to realize that it's not your fault, because I blamed myself for a long time. Like I was like, well, maybe if I ate better, I shouldn't have ate the pizza, the wings, fattening foods, So I blamed myself for a long time. So I had to learn to just let go.
Yeah. Love that. Something that came to mind was when you were talking about releasing. So not holding stuff in and releasing, and we're holding energy into our bodies and just releasing that. You get to be free of that.
It's very true, because I feel like when you hold on to stuff, when you're very tense, you can feel it in your body. You can, and I feel like you hold it all, like your body even feels when you're not relaxed.
Yeah, you definitely can. A part of the work, or a part of how I work with people, is helping them to tune into what they're holding in their bodies. Like what's the shoulder holding? Like what's happening in the shoulder? What's the lower back? What's the stomach? What are the legs holding? Because the body just holds all of our emotions and all of our experiences. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like you mentioned, working out and boot camp, like that is an amazing way to just
Yeah.
like release
Release it.
tension and
Mm-hmm.
stress and energy from the body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. What's something that is currently giving you joy?
To be honest, I think Tasha's tea is actually like it's giving me something to look forward to, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm very passionate about it. Like I'll just wake up in the morning and I'm like, ooh, I have an idea. Let me,
Yeah.
while it's fresh in my head, let me write it down. So
Yeah.
for right now, I think that that's really giving me, it's really giving me, I feel like it's giving me purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, my great nephew. So that
Mm-hmm.
would be it's my husband's niece's son
Okay.
he's one. And I never
Mm-hmm.
thought like a baby would help me to feel like purposeful again.
Yeah.
And we've been very like involved in his life since he was a
Mm-hmm.
baby. So we'll grab him for a weekend and just
Mm-hmm.
take him out or just sit home with him. And
Mm-hmm.
just that experience too it's really helped me to heal. And I never thought like seeing a baby physically and playing with the baby, kissing on a baby I didn't
Mm-hmm.
think I'd ever be able to do that again.
Yeah.
So just having him in my life is like it's made me happy. And when I don't see him, I think about him and I'll video call him and I'm like, where's my baby? Let me see him. And I'll teach him how to blow kisses or give me a kiss or say bye. And,
Mm-hmm.
that actually it's given me purpose because it kind of makes me feel like, okay, God, I know you're preparing me for what's about to happen. So
Mm-hmm.
go with the flow and just kind of see where it takes you. And it's funny because he's gotten so attached to us sometimes, like when we drop him back off at home, he doesn't want to leave. Like he starts crying and I'm like, oh, this is what it's going to feel like. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God, like they're pulling on my heartstrings. So I think that's helped me too. And it kind of just happened. Like we were just like, well, we'll babysit him for a weekend. And then it became, all right, well, where is he? We'll take him this weekend. He's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like our tag along. So I think it's helped me. And I think it's helped my husband to heal too, because I think since the losses, I don't think we were close. Well, I don't think anybody in the family really had like babies at that point.
Yeah.
So to have like a newborn baby in the family and we get to play with him and cuddle him and
Mm-hmm.
it's helping me to heal. So that way, I think he is God sent. And I think it's helping me to prepare for what's going to come.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Like love and joy. Isn't that
Yeah.
such an amazing healing antidote?
Yeah. And the thing about it is he's such a happy baby. He's like,
Mm.
if he's fussy, then something's wrong with him.
Yeah.
But other than that, he's just a very happy and he's a very affectionate baby. So he
Mm-hmm.
likes to give kisses. He likes to hug. And it feels so good to just snuggle up with the baby,
Oh
you
my
know?
gosh.
So
Yeah.
that's helped me out a lot. It really,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, so we're coming close to the end.
Mhm.
For someone who is on a similar journey, right? So you mentioned being able to look back in your journal or your diary and see, where you were in terms of your emotions and where you are right now.
Mm-hmm.
So for someone, whether or not they are early along on their journey, whether or not their loss was recent, but if they're in that place of feeling really discouraged and really as though they're wanting to give up and the life that they're wanting to have, it isn't possible, what words could you offer to someone who's in that place right now?
My best advice would be I know it's not easy,
Mm-hmm.
but to just try not to give up.
Mm-hmm.
Just try not to give up. Because at some point you're gonna feel like giving up. And the only reason I know that is because I did. I gave up.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute I gave up is when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So just try your best to just not give up and make sure that you have a strong support system. Best thing. If it's you're 2 o'clock in the morning, who can you call at 2 o'clock in the morning if you're just having a day and there's like no one else that you can talk to?
Yeah.
So just make sure you have a solid support system. Someone, and doesn't have to be a lot of people. Sometimes it could be one person, your go-to person that no matter what. If I call them at 10 o'clock and I said, I just need you to come over here and just chill with me. I'm lonely. I just need somebody. Then that's your support system. Sometimes you just want somebody to be with you at a doctor's appointment.
Yeah.
Sometimes your partner can't be there with you. So having a strong support system is good, and just try not to give up. Just try not to give up. And you're going to have days where you're going to have meltdowns. It's normal. I had a meltdown like 2 weeks ago. So it's okay. Meltdowns are okay. There's nothing wrong with having a meltdown, because this journey is not easy. Not easy, and it's not built for the weak, because boy, amount of things that I've been through, it's a lot. So have a strong support system, and just don't give up. Don't give up. There's hope at the end of this journey, and whatever your story is, whatever your path to motherhood, just don't feel ashamed by it. If it's adoption, if it's IVF, if it's surrogacy, whatever your journey is or whatever your path is to motherhood, don't be ashamed about it. Don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed, because everybody's journey is different, and don't compare your journey to anyone else's, because I'm still learning that. Because sometimes I look at people and I'm like, why couldn't my journey just be that easy? So just try not to compare your journey to anyone else's, because that won't help you. It's just going to bring you down. So don't compare your journey to anyone else's. Have a strong support system, and just don't give up. Don't give up.
Yeah. Wonderful. All right. Final question. What makes you a birth warrior?
I'm still going. I think is the main thing. I'm still going despite everything. Despite the difficult journey that we've been on, I'm still going, and I'm still hopeful. I'm still hopeful that I'm going to be a mom. I'm going to be somebody's mama.
All right. Yes.
I'm going to be somebody's mama. So
yes.
I'm going to be somebody's mama. So that's how I feel. I'm still hopeful, and I'm still going.
Yes, I love that. Well, thank you, Tasha, for sharing your amazing story.
Thank you for reaching out, and I just appreciate all your support. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you. Well, this has been another episode of the Preparing for Pregnancy After Loss podcast. We're here with Tasha, who just shared her amazing story. So thank you again, Tasha, and thank you all for tuning in and hanging out with us.
Thank you, Natalie. Bye.
Bye.